Join me, a 30-year-old straight guy and former Kanye West fan who stumbled across Taylor's music by dumb luck one day, completely fell in love with it, and then wrote a novel-sized thesis on why it's so good, as I go on a deep dive through the Fearless era, discussing and reviewing its 26 songs, 8 music videos, 12 live performances, and of course, Taylor's debut concert tour. If you want to know more about how I went from being totally dismissive of Taylor's music to completely in love with it, or if you want to read the whole 160-plus thousand word thesis, the links are in the doobly-doo. Fearless, in case you didn't know, is the second full-length album from Taylor Swift, but it's also kind of her 11th because it was the first of her 6 records released on the Big Machine label to be re-recorded in its entirety. The original Fearless released way back in November of 2008, and Fearless Taylor's version dropped nearly 13 years later in April of 2021. In addition to including wholly remade versions of the 19 tracks on the deluxe platinum edition of the original record, Fearless Taylor's version also includes a single that Taylor recorded for the 2010 film Valentine's Day, as well as 6 brand new From the Vault tracks, which are songs which had been left on the cutting room floor back in 2008, now being released for the first time. The streaming version of Fearless Taylor's version also kind of includes one other track now, which used to be on Taylor's third album, Speak Now. It's weird, we'll talk about that in a minute. So when it comes to discussion of the album itself here, unless otherwise stated, I'm going to be talking about the Taylor's version recordings. As far as I'm concerned, the Taylor's versions are the canon versions of the record that everyone should be listening to, unless nostalgia or a crazy project like this one really compels you otherwise. But even on the original non-Taylor's version, which I did listen to as part of this, you put that record on and it's immediately evident that the production has taken a big step up from debut. I've got a lot of qualms with her debut record. Full disclosure, I don't love that one very much, but like 80% of the reasons why come down to the way it was produced. And not all of that, but the vast majority of it was solved coming into Fearless. And then all of it was solved coming into Taylor's version, which I think is just a beautifully produced album. It sounds incredible on a good pair of headphones. You should really listen to it on the best equipment that you have, because it's worth it. I also want to say that I think Taylor's music has gotten better with basically every single record. Like, my overall reviews of each one of her albums has a very strong upward trajectory over time, which means that I don't like Fearless as much as I like most of her other albums. But I do still love this record. I think it's great, even if I have some critiques of it. And I want to be clear that I want to love every single song on this album. I take no pleasure in not enjoying things. I don't think it's cool to not like stuff. So if you can help me love one of the handful of tracks on this record that I don't currently love, I'm all ears. I want to hear it how you hear it. So without further ado, the title track. On debut, it took all the way until Our Song, the 11th track on the album, for me to go, this sounds unequivocally like a Taylor Swift song. Like this was written and produced and composed with her strengths and her unique perspective as a songwriter in mind. But with Fearless, we get that immediately. Song number 1, the title track. It doesn't sound like anything else on pop country radio at the time. It sounds like Taylor. It's young, it's bright, it's poppy, it's country, but it's not twangy. There's a part of me, as much as debut fans might kind of hate to hear it, that feels like Taylor's musical identity really begins in earnest with Fearless. Also, I love an album opener that has a really iconic and simple riff to start it off. Like the first 5 seconds of the song, you hear them, and it's starting to sink its teeth into you from the very first moments. I've heard this record probably 50 times now, and every time I hear those first few strings, it sets the tone for the whole thing. We've also got really dynamic verses here that aren't just there for filler between the choruses. There's this rise and fall that keeps the momentum of the song going, and then when the chorus does come around, it's sweet, it's simple, it's fun, it's really catchy, and probably the high point of the whole track for me, something which will become very much a theme as this goes along, is the bridge, where the song reaches its apex of intensity. Taylor's describing all these hands trembling, all leading up to this first kiss, before when the kiss actually does happen, all the sound fades out, the song settles into this really quiet place, just for Taylor to come back for air with this head first Fearless. That's such a good moment. It's the high point of the track. With the sole exception of Our Song, I think I like this track more than anything on debut, and it's only continued to grow on me since the first listen. It's a really strong album opener. So here we are on just the second song of the album, and we've got easily Taylor's best storytelling lyrics of her career to this point. 15 is a 15-year-old song through and through, the kind that honestly could only be written from someone who was just 15 a couple of years ago. All those painful and awkward memories, the life of being a 15-year-old is still pretty fresh in Taylor's mind. Like the social dynamics of having a crush and having your first relationships and your first heartbreak. High school is just such a strange microcosm universe, and if you're in high school right now, God bless you. But Taylor choosing to write this in the second person subtly compels you to reflect on your own experiences. I think everyone, regardless of your gender or socioeconomics or whatever, I think everyone can relate to some part of the lyrics of this song. Taylor talks a bit about the inspiration behind these lyrics in the tour video, and we actually see it explicitly in the music video. But I think the main thing that stands out to me about these lyrics is how well they walk that fine line of managing to include phrases like hoping one of the senior boys will wink at you and we'll be out of here as soon as we can, but never really crossing over into feeling cheesy. Like, Taylor's become a much better lyricist now and is able to write about being young without the words themselves being cheapened by their own youngness. There's an actual, like, not feigned maturity here. And a song that's about feeling such immature feelings, I found that really refreshing coming off of debut. And I promise I won't keep harping on why I think Fearless is such a better record than debut. I was just pleased and relieved coming into this album to see that Taylor's skill level as a songwriter was making such a stride so quickly. As I went through Taylor's catalog for this project, there were only 4 or 5 songs that I heard and immediately recognized, like ones that had transcended Taylor's fandom and entered the cultural stratosphere, like Shake It Off, and Love Story was one of those tracks. Like the title track, the opening guitar is super iconic. I really love that subtle, wavering, kind of electric slide guitar thing that's happening. It just kind of sits back behind the rest of the track, arching up to break through the surface every few seconds. This song has a really simple aesthetic. It's got this one kind of sonic theme, and it doesn't really try to do anything more than that. And doesn't have to. Every time that chorus hits, whatever else is going on in the world around you is temporarily unavailable because Romeo's taken you somewhere where you can be alone. Her chorus game is really just on another level with this album. And speaking of upping her game, the bridge. Is it the best bridge on the album? I don't know that I would go that far, but I do love the tension building, wavering fiddle, and I love how intense the swell is at the end as it transitions into Pulled Out a Ring Instead, and it unlocks a level of energy for the final chorus beyond what any of the previous ones had. On top of everything I said about the music, lyrically, this song is just super sweet and adorable. I love the Romeo and Juliet metaphor. I love the lyrical trope of taking some of the core lyrics from earlier on and rephrasing them for the final part of the song to create a sense of continuity and closure. The combination of how catchy the hook is with how solid the lyrics are, I think this is Taylor's most complete song to this point in her career. And I'm sure there are a lot of Swifties who feel like it's been overplayed, or that it's not cool to like love one of her biggest radio hits because it feels less like it's your song and more like it's the world's song or something. But this is just a quality pop country bop right here, man. There's no way around it, and there's no use in denying it. It's really good. I totally did not expect the vibe of the next song the first time it came on. Hey Stevens got this like Jimmy Buffett-y humming on the beach energy with the acoustic guitar way at the front of the mix, and otherwise a really sparse instrumentation. Just a simple, clean bass line and drum beat. And then besides like an extra layer of a little bit of playful guitar and that keyboard that starts to sneak in as the song goes on, we don't even really go much farther than that with the choruses. The song is just really relaxed and it's sunny and it's not too loud. This song feels like lounging. And I actually find that really refreshing. The first 3 tracks in the album are all, to some degree, trying to take you on the emotional roller coaster of a pop song. And this one is just like paddleboarding out on some mild waves in the sun. All those little melodies scattered throughout, like the way you walk, way you talk, way you say my name. They're all really just undramatic and casual. It's not trying to all work towards some grand thematic goal or crescendo. The instrumentation and the melodies here are just a perfect musical accompaniment to the love tipsy lyrics. It's not a storytelling song. The lyrics aren't the best on the album, but not every song needs to be poetry. And there's absolutely a time and a place for a song that's just like, Steven, buddy, I'm crushing on you hard, and I'm gonna need you to come over here and chill with me. Let's stay the same. Let's stay the same, also, really good line. Taylor's little laugh at the end of the bridge, perfect cherry on top of the vibes of this track. She's making sure that you know that she knows that nothing's serious. This is playful. We're just feeling the breeze. So yeah, Hey Steven, really fun song, really catchy chorus, and frankly, it almost feels a shame to be listening to this in February in the Pacific Northwest, because this song kind of wants you to play it with the windows down on like a summer morning drive. Taylor's really doing a lot of vibe setting with this album. None of the tracks on Fearless are opening anything close to like in media res. Like, we're setting the stage every time with a little riff that introduces you to the vibe of the song. White Horses is, well, we've made a dramatic emotional shift from Hey Steven, I'll say that, which is interesting because I actually think this song might be about Steven. There's this lyrical thread tying the song together where the boy is introduced in both tracks as looking like an angel, and that's a pretty specific description to be coincidental, especially in back-to-back tracks. And then later in the song, we also get the line, I'm not a princess, this ain't a fairy tale, which, you know, the Romeo and Juliet thing back on Love Story, and later we'll see the music video for Love Story definitely gives some princess vibes. So I think White Horse might be giving us the heartbroken ending to the romance that we just came out of. I think it's valid to consider that there might be kind of a trilogy of 3 songs here. This was the first inter-song lyrical link that I found in Taylor's discography, and it really gave me a sudden hope that Taylor had storytelling ambitions beyond what I'd been expecting. What I also love about White Horse is the transformation in self-image that takes place over the course of this song. In the beginning, Taylor is just straight up calling herself a stupid girl. She says she's naive, that she made a mistake, she's not a princess. But by the time we get to the end of the track, it's not that she's not a princess. She implies that she is. She's not his princess. She's not having any of his begging. She's leaving his piddly little town in the rearview mirror, and he couldn't catch her, even if he tried. And I love that. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Taylor's vocals on the re-recording are really good, especially in the bridge where she goes down into her lower register and then you get a little edge on the line might actually treat me well. Age 30 plus Taylor has such a talent for conveying emotion in her voice. I will fight you if you tell me she is not a good singer now. I said before that there were only maybe 4 or 5 songs in Taylor's whole 10 album discography that I'd recognized during this project, and it turns out that 2 of them are in a 4-song stretch at the front end of Fearless, because the second I heard You Belong With Me, I didn't actually remember the song very well, but I did remember I had this imagery for the song, which it turns out is from the music video. That music video was massive and just a inescapable part of pop culture in 2009, especially because well, we'll get into that later. But You Belong With Me is a great song on its own merits. It's got another really great intro, and then we quickly drop into some of the very best melodies of Taylor's career to this point. It's probably my favorite track on debut or Fearless, just purely in terms of the melodies and the hook. This song has an all-time great chorus. 60 years from now, when people are talking about Taylor's music, when they're playing some career retrospective on our VR Holovision or whatever, the chorus of this song is going to be in that. No matter what else she does in her career, it's just that good of a hook. In fact, it's so good, I actually think it artificially elevates the lyrics a little bit. Like, the whole she wears short skirts, I wear t-shirts thing, it's not my favorite, and I don't think it's aged super well, but it doesn't even matter, because it's just sung over such a memorable part of the song that it automatically becomes legendary. Anything she would have said at the start of the chorus would have been. And especially still being a teenager when she was writing and recording this, most artists would have probably been more than happy to just put out an S-tier chorus like that and just leave it be. But Taylor goes and sticks on a bridge that is every bit worthy of its place between the 2 hooks on the song, and one that incidentally generated what I believe is Taylor's first crowd participation moment. That little when you're about to cry, clap, clap. It's very cute. I love that. But yeah, not much else to say. It's not reinventing the wheel, but it's almost impossible to conceive of a better pop melody than this one. It's a vision in the oracle's vapors as to the pop songwriting master that Taylor is going to become in very short order. And it's eminently sing-alongable. It's one of the few tracks you can put on around people who don't care about Taylor's music at all, and they're still going to dance and sing along. And if they don't, you should just get away. Breathe is a song that I don't quite get. There's some stuff I like. I think it's produced really well on Taylor's version. I love the fidelity of the guitar and the mandolin and that stereo mixing that really stands out at the beginning. And I think the pre-chorus is okay, but it's strange to think that the pre-chorus is the standout melody of a track instead of the chorus itself. It's pretty rare for a Taylor Swift chorus to just not really do it for me. But this song just never sticks in my head. I never find myself seeking it out. And the bridge here too is very unusual in that I don't think it's a highlight. As for the lyrics, again, maybe I'm missing something, but all that really stuck in my mind about the lyrics here was after I went and listened to the whole rest of her catalog and then came back to it, I noticed that 2 a.m. reference in there. The girl loves her a 2 a.m. moment. Oh, and this song has a feature, Colby Calais, and she does some backing vocals. I don't know what I'm missing here, folks. I don't know where the magic of this track is. Why doesn't this one click for me? I wish I knew. For now, this track is a pretty steep drop from such a strong opening run for the record for me. But okay, we're on to Tell Me Why, and it's much better. Do I love the song as much as the opening 6 tracks? No. But there's still a lot more that I do like about this song. We get another great opening with that little fiddle loop. That's really kind of funky and unexpected. And then maybe my favorite thing about this song is how you can never get complacent with it. There's only 2 verses, and they're both very short, but they've got basically 2 totally different melodies to them. The I took a chance, I took a shot, and then the you could write a book on how to ruin someone's perfect day. 2 very different feelings in those 2 verses. And the choruses are kind of like that too. The first 2 choruses open with different lines, and then the third one combines the first 2 lines. I think that's fun. It's an experimentation in songwriting that we don't really have a lot of on her first 2 albums, so it's exciting to kind of see the seeds of that being planted there, because a few albums down the line, it's going to actually be a staple of Taylor's songwriting style. This is also one of the songs where I noticed the most obvious differences between Taylor's vocals on the original recording compared to Taylor's version. Her voice has just gotten so much better. And this track is also one that makes me really excited to hear what she does with the debut Taylor's version, because man, a lot of the vocal performances on that first album and on Fearless are just really frail, and she's got the chops now. This song, among several others, is definitive proof of that. Anyway, Tell Me Why. It's got a decent hook. It's a fun idea. Not anything to write home about lyrically, but this song is not usually a skip for me. It's kind of right on the border. Okay, so You're Not Sorry rounds out a little 3-track dip in the album for me. Between Breathe, Tell Me Why, and now this song, we get the album's only extended run of tracks that I'm not crazy about. But I'll say this, in case you're getting worried about how critical I'm going to be of this album or any other album of hers, from these 3 tracks onward, I've checked, for the rest of Taylor's entire catalog, there are never again 3 songs in a row that average this low of scores for me. It's all uphill from here. So You're Not Sorry, this is one of the handful of tracks from Fearless that remind me a little bit of Debut in that it sounds like it could be another artist's song. Taylor doesn't do that very often, and starting with the next record, think there's maybe only 1 or 2 tracks I can think of from Speak Now onward that I would obviously say that about, but in Fearless, we do still get a few of them, and this is definitely one. I think the emotions she's going for here are better captured on other tracks, and the lyrical themes here are explored with a little bit more eloquence and depth on some other tracks. And there's a certain lack of dynamism between the verses and the choruses here. Besides a tiny little peak in the middle with that electric guitar bit and a tiny little valley after that, this song rides a pretty steady energy level throughout that I just struggled to connect with. It's got a better hook than Breathe, but I think it's also a bit more muted in the production, and so overall it's just kind of a wash between those two tracks for me. If you really click with any of these last 3 songs, please tell me about it. I want to be sold. I want to like them. So sometimes Taylor's lyrics on her older songs are very reflective of how old she was when she wrote it. And I think the next track, The Way I Loved You, is one of those, but in kind of a charming way. This track is all about having this really respectful, kind, decent partner and being like, but I miss the guy who would fight and scream with me. And obviously that's very unhealthy, but it's also how a lot of people actually feel, especially younger people who are kind of new to relationships. And I don't know, I find it kind of endearing. I especially like the bridge here, rhyming wild and crazy with frustrating and intoxicating complicated. That kind of lexical ambition really foreshadows some rhymes Taylor's going to put on her future records. Okay, if you have the original version of The Way I Loved You easily accessible, and if you have a good pair of headphones, go listen to the chorus on the original recording, then come back and listen to the chorus on Taylor's version. The space. The production is so much more spacious. It sounds so much more open and robust now. It's just a world of difference in how much better the chorus sounds now, and it really solidifies how flat the mix was on her first 2 records. But I'm not grading the original, I'm grading Taylor's version, and I think this song's a pretty big improvement from the previous 3 tracks. It's got a catchy chorus, it's got a nice verse melody, and like I said, not even just lyrically, I think we're back to Taylor Staples' strong bridges here. This is a decent cut, for sure. Alright, my favorite thing about Forever and Always is the momentum of the verses in this song. They've got this kind of stuttering effect, this go and then stop, go and then stop. And every time it stops, all the instrumentation quiets down, Taylor throws out a few words, and then everything kicks back in. And I just really love that effect. I think it gives this song a really unique flow compared to anything else on the record. It's the kind of effect that you can easily imagine falling totally flat if it was done poorly, but I think it works really well here. I also think this song has a pretty decent hook. It's not my favorite hook on the record, but it's in the upper half. And I like the bridge here too. It's really short and sweet, but it gives us just enough of a shake up to kind of keep the back half of the song feeling fresh. It's not my favorite song lyrically, but it's got a few gems in there, and especially I like, did I say something way too honest? Made you run and hide like a scared little boy. That's just, oof. That's Taylor's first, like, really biting knife in the gut line. And she's got a lot of those, and they are coming. But this is the first one in her career that made me go, like, oh, ouch. Like, ooh, she really got him with that one. There's also a piano version of Forever and Always that shows up a little later on some versions of Fearless. It's got a much sadder vibe. Taylor's acoustic or piano versions, of course, always change up the emotional flavor of the track, but this one, more than almost any other, just totally flips the energy of the song, and it's solid. I could definitely see someone preferring that version to the original. Personally, I think the hook here is good enough and works well enough on the original that it's not really worth sacrificing the catchiness of it for the deeper emotions of the piano version. I guess I just also don't feel like the lyrics here are powerful enough to really make the most of a slowed, kind of emotional rendition, but it's good, and it's definitely a better showcase of Taylor's vocal transformation over the years, with most of the production being stripped away. The TV version is also miles better than the original. Alright, we're on to track 12, and it's The Best Day. Ah, The Best Day, man. This song is just so damn cute. It's one of the cutest songs ever written. I'll just say it is. It doesn't get cuter than this. And it's a risk making a song this stinking cute because it could easily be overly saccharine, like maple glazed, overwhelmingly sweet. And it's not. There's just the right amount of sugar in this recipe, and I really have a special place for this song in my heart. One of the things that I like most about it is that Taylor was still only, I believe, 18 when this album was recorded, so she might have even been 17 when she wrote this song originally, and kids that age are almost universally too cool for their parents. She's trying to be this big pop country star, she's going on tour and doing these great stage performances in front of these huge crowds, and she still puts a song on her album where the thesis is basically just, I love my mom so much. It's a testament to Taylor's maturity at an age when most of us were not mature enough to do something like that. But equally, and importantly, I think it's a testament to Taylor's mom. Like, how cool of a mom do you need to be for your on the verge of major fame 17-year-old to write a song about you? It's remarkable. It just is. The line, but I know you're not scared of anything at all. Oh my gosh. But it's for all those reasons that on all of Debut and Fearless, this is my highest rated song in the lyrics category. Not just because of the lyrics themselves, which are very good, but because of what it speaks about for Taylor to be able to write a song like this, and how effective it is at being so sweet and so touching without crossing that line into becoming icing, sugary, sentimental. Instead, it's just honest. It's not performative, it's not cool, it's just real. And that's kind of Taylor at her best in a nutshell, is not performative, not trying to be cool, just real. And yeah, it's also got a really solid melody and instrumentation. The music is slow, but it's also bright and a little on the cheerful side, which lets Taylor's kind of mellow, melancholic vocal delivery balance it all out. The Best Day's great. What a heartwarmer. There have been several songs over the course of this project that I've gone back to weeks or months later, and with the context of her later records, with repeated listens and with music videos or live performances, had my opinions change. And Change is one such a song. The first few times I listened to Fearless, this was easily one of my least favorite songs on the record, and a lot of that comes down to the lyrics, which have a real "we are the champions" kind of energy to them, where there's no real specificity. Like, this could apply to any group of people in any circumstances. And art is ultimately about sharing perspective, and the song just doesn't have much of a perspective to me. But I've warmed up to it a little bit. Still definitely not my favorite track on the record, but I can see the seeds in this song, which will, on the next album cycle, germinate in The Long Live, which is a much better song with pretty much all the same ideas here, executed on a higher level. And I've also come to appreciate how much of a soft rock song this is. It's one of the first really clear demonstrations that we get from Taylor of her willingness to explore genre and not necessarily lock herself into the pop country box that she started in. So I think this song is important in the context of her career, more than I think it's like good on its own merits. But that's still something. And it bumped up a few spots of my ratings over the last few months. And speaking of songs that feel important more than they feel good, next up is Jump Then Fall. This song has probably my least favorite melody on the record. It's fine, it's not horrible or anything, but it's just really not my favorite. But I can see the seed of potential in the chorus. But after like 2 or 3 repeats of the main refrain, I'm just kind of done with it. However, the verses do something really interesting, which is that they switch around the cadence and the number of syllables in a line, which lets Taylor get a little bit playful with her vocal delivery. And so we have these moments like, "I have ever heard," and the "I love each freckle on your face," oh, right? Taylor goes on in albums to come to be really wonderful at playful vocal deliveries. And there are a few songs in her catalog that I actually think are basically carried successfully by how colorfully Taylor can deliver her lyrics. I'm thinking of a song like "I Forgot That You Existed," right? That song is built on Taylor's ability to convey like micro expressions with her voice. And this is, as far as I can recall at least, the first time she's really done that with a studio recording. We get a little bit of that on some live performances, but not on a record. This seems like the first time where in the studio Taylor was like, I can show emotion in my voice, not just by hitting the right notes of the vocal melody, but by giving it little twists and tweaks too. And she's right, and it works. All that's to say, that fact is pretty much all I like about this track. It's fine. Nothing else is really memorable about it to me, and I tend to skip it more often than not. Okay, bear with me, folks. Pretty sure this is a somewhat hot take, but Untouchable is the best song on Fearless. What a great track. No song in Taylor's entire discography has grown on me as dramatically as Untouchable has. When I first listened to the record, I thought this song was fine, kind of middle of the pack, whatever. But after a few weeks of listening to Taylor's version, every time I listened to Fearless, I was like, okay, I'm starting to like Untouchable more. I'm really starting to like this one a lot. This is actually becoming one of my favorite songs on the album, actually. And now I'm just so into this track. It's such a vibe. If you don't know, Untouchable is technically a cover. It's the only cover in Taylor's entire studio LP catalog, and as far as we know, I think it's also the only song she's ever released on an album for which she didn't write any of the lyrics. That said, Taylor does have songwriting credits for this one, and for very good reason, because this track sounds practically nothing at all like the original by Luna Halo. Unrecognizable. How Taylor heard that original song and thought she could turn it into this, I can't even fathom. Allow me a moment here to gush about this track. Untouchable is the longest song on the record, and it feels like the longest song on the record. It's a real slow burn. It takes its time. It's silky and smooth and just kind of takes you on this chill magic carpet ride over the city with a string arrangement that feels really twinkly and warm. And it starts off really sparse, but by the end it's got all these layers that have accumulated over the course of the song. It's almost got like a Mazzy Star Trespassers William quality to it. And for an artist who goes on to become a master at the gradual build-up, like we get on Dear John or All Too Well, this is her first track on which she really affords herself the time and the space to go from something that's kind of bare and then build it up until it reaches this rich, bright crescendo. It's also maybe my single favorite vocal performance on Fearless Taylor's version. There's a timbre and a depth and a level of vocal control to Taylor's voice now that lends the track this authenticity and sincerity that just wasn't there on the original. If this song has never been a standout for you, I highly encourage you to go give it another shot. Untouchable is great, and it deserves more love. Moving on to Come In With The Rain. It's just a really pretty song. I wouldn't go so far as to call it one of my favorite tracks overall on this record, but speaking strictly about the music and the melodies, I do think this is one of the strongest. It's got one of the most complex and dynamic choruses on the album, especially as far as ballads go. And every time the chorus comes around, I'm fully immersed in it and I'm along for the ride. On the other hand, I'm not totally sold on the lyrics here. There are some lines I like more than others, and actually, I think the opening verse is probably my favorite part of the song lyrically, but I'm less hot on the choruses. And I think this song stands out for Taylor in that it really has almost no bridge at all. It's like a 15-word bridge, it's practically not even there, which is a bit of a shame because I think this song might have benefited from that more than most, and she's normally so good at making a highlight out of a bridge. Still, it's very pretty. I really like the slide guitar and the transitions into the choruses, and Taylor's vocals on Taylor's version are really strong. It's sad, but it also feels like a song that's meant to be slow danced to, you know? Like it's got this kind of end of the night, cool down, head on your shoulder energy to it. You wouldn't guess from the lyrics how warm and soothing the vibe of this song actually is. So I've gotten the impression from reading about this album online that Superstar might not be one of the more popular tracks on the album, and yeah, it's not one of my favorites either. This is one of those tracks where I feel like I can see the pieces of what it might have been, like those little 2-second bits of like, oh, there's something. And then they just don't really all come together to form a song that works as a whole for me. It also suffers a little bit from the same thing as Change, where once I'd heard Long Live, I was like, oh, here's that idea, just executed in a much more sophisticated way. And in this case, I think Enchanted, on her next record, plays with a pretty similar idea to this one, but on a much more personal, emotional level with like an actual developing narrative to it. Whereas the lyrics to this one, Fearless doesn't feel immature in the way that Debut sometimes does, but the lyrics here definitely do have that was written by a teenage girl quality to them, which sometimes is endearing, sometimes not, and in this case, not as much. But like I said, there are little things scattered throughout with the vocal delivery and the instrumentation that I do think are pretty good, like the beginning of the bridge, which I think is really genuinely beautiful. There just aren't enough of those moments to keep the whole track afloat for me. And as proof that one really good bit, one really great idea, and one part of a song can keep a whole track afloat, you need look no further than The Other Side of the Door. I'm not crazy about this song as a whole. It's kind of a middle of the pack song on the album for me, but it has one incredibly redeeming quality to it that elevates it a little bit above that, and is possibly actually my favorite specific moment on this whole record. So I do like the instrumentation on this track. It's like the fullest sounding country instrumentation that we get on the record. I like how the banjo just rides right at the front for the whole song instead of just showing up to add a little twang here or there. And it's got a decently catchy chorus too. The lyrics are fine. They're really cliche, but there's some fun little tricks Taylor does in there, like the I mean it turning into but what I mean is. I like that a lot. But we get through the whole track. I'm kind of mid on it. And the last chorus ends, and suddenly we get something totally out of left field and completely unexpected with the outro. The cadence of her vocal delivery completely changes. The tempo of the song shifts up a gear. The emotional tone of the song takes a turn. And Taylor starts rapid firing this run on sentence that perfectly encapsulates the highs and the lows of their relationship and how it fell apart. And you can feel how mad she is, and then you can feel how sad she is. It's just so good. Like the outro of this song, it may well be my favorite moment on the whole record. And frankly, part of the appeal is how different it is from the rest of the song. It feels like a twist ending to a movie or something. It's just such a sharp turn that it retroactively made me enjoy the rest of the song more because I know now that it's secretly building up to this really incredible outro. The first time I heard it, it just like broke my brain. I had to go back and listen to the song again just to try to make sense of what had just happened. And now when I'm listening to Fearless in the car, if there's one bit that I can 100% guarantee you I will be singing along with word for word, it's the outro to The Other Side of the Door. So, Today Was a Fairy Tale was not on the original recording of Fearless, but it's also not one of the 6 previously unreleased from the Vault tracks either. It was originally recorded for the 2010 film Valentine's Day, in which Taylor Swift had a small acting role. I watched it. It's not great. It's like Love Actually, but American and worse. Okay, but Taylor recorded this song for that soundtrack, and then it was released as a single, and then years later, Fearless Taylor's version comes around, and she re-records it for the record. Straight up, this is my least favorite track on the album. And it's strangely just kind of for one reason, which is the words "Today Was a Fairy Tale" appear 16 times in a 4-minute song. So on average, that's one "Today Was a Fairy Tale" every 15 seconds. And that is just too many "Today Was a Fairy Tales." It feels like every time the momentum of the song starts going, we just get another "Today Was a Fairy Tale," and all the energy drops back down again. And we build up, and then there's that line again, and we're back down again. It drives me nuts. I think the melody here is cute, It's fine. The original recording actually has stronger vocals than a lot of the original Fearless tracks. There are things to like about it. And yeah, this is almost certainly the most specific and singular gripe I have about any song in her entire catalog. It's really the only time I've ever felt this way about a Taylor track, where it's just this one little thing. It's just so telling instead of showing, it's so repetitive, and it's just so far below her talent as a lyricist that it prevents me from enjoying everything else about the song the way that I probably should. So I'm sorry, I just can't get past it. All right, now we've entered the vault. You All Over Me is the first proper from the vault track, which, as I said earlier, were these tracks that were written and recorded during the same time as the original tracks on Fearless, but for whatever reason didn't make the cut to make it onto the record. So now they're being re-recorded and presumably tweaked and updated to some degree. And You All Over Me, co-written with Maren Morris, who also does backing vocals, opens up the vault section with one of the strongest lyrical songs on the album. Some of the lines on the track, like "Don't You Wish You Had Me" grin, and that core conceit of having you all over me, I really like. And Taylor actually revisits this same idea, this metaphor of being covered in someone, like saturated in their presence even after they're gone, and wanting to cleanse yourself of that, a couple albums down the line with the song Clean, a word which incidentally features prominently in the chorus here. And I think there's probably a good possibility that we don't get Clean on 1989 if this song was released the first time around. And I like Clean a lot, so I'm happy about that. Musically, I'm not super crazy about this one. It's got a very flat energy to it. The choruses don't really rise above the verses. Everything sort of stays at a quiet, solemn level, it's not bad. I mostly like this song, but I do think the lack of dynamism and energy in the music kind of puts a leash on the emotional impact of the lyric. I think the song would hit a bit harder if they'd let it really build up the strength to get you in the heart, and it's just not quite able to do that for me as it is. In spite of that, the actual nuances of the production, like the sounds they chose, are really pretty. I like that opening little keyboard pulse. That's a really classic Aaron Dessner sounds. It's something we'll be seeing much, much more, and also I think just to better effect on Folklore and Evermore. Without a doubt, one of the highlights from the Vault tracks for me is the next track, Mr. Perfectly Fine. After I heard the first verse of this song for the first time, I was certain that the whole Mr. gimmick of the lyrics was like a cheap novelty thing, something that a really young lyricist would think was super clever, but then kind of, cringe at later on. But you keep going, and actually, the rest of the lyrics here, which are really good, kind of buttress it, and the production and the music all kind of fit around it, and it ends up mostly working. Still kind of silly, definitely. But by the time I was on my 5th or 10th listen to this song, I was like, yeah, no, I'm just embracing the silliness of this. This is fun. And one of the most important factors in that development was Taylor's vocal delivery here. I mentioned this briefly with Jump Then Fall. I think one of Taylor's strongest qualities as a singer is her ability to paint the words with a very specific emotional tone. Like, she won't just say fine, she'll say fine. Or she'll say, fine. There's this little twist in there. It's something you have to use sparingly, and she does. But when she does, it's always really, really well done. And this song has several moments like that where you can hear the sarcasm and the resentment in her voice. Like, they're really snarky, but it's wonderful to see that you're okay. And the lyrics here give her ample opportunity for it. I really like the way Perfectly Fine transforms over the song from initially standing in contrast to Taylor being sad when he's perfectly fine, to then Taylor being happy when he's perfectly fine. And both thematically and specifically, these lyrics really foreshadow some of her future songs as well. I'm thinking of a song like I Bet You Think About Me, or of course the words casually cruel reappearing in All Too Well. And yeah, on top of all that, it's a really catchy pop song. It's not quite on the level of her S-tier bangers at the start of the album, but it's sing along in the car worthy for sure. It strikes a nice balance between emotional lows and highs, and kind of a classic Taylor song in that it's got heartbreak and longing, but also resiliency and celebration. So yeah, one of my favorite vault tracks on this album for sure. Revisiting this album after I listened to the rest of her discography is really strange, because I ended up being such a fan of Aaron Dessner's production on Folklore and Evermore, but the 2 vault tracks he produced for Fearless are the only 2 vault tracks that I'm just not crazy about. And in both cases, before with You All Over Me and now with We Were Happy, they're both really beautiful on a sonic level. Like, if you just take a moment to really appreciate the soundscapes of it, the fine quality of the guitar tone and things like that, they sound really nice. But emotionally, they both just kind of don't go anywhere for me. There's no part of the song that really gets its hooks in. The choruses take 1 or 2 steps up the staircase, and then they just kind of come back down again. And the bridge goes a little bit farther, and then it just kind of comes back down again after a few seconds. It's a very, very short bridge. And I should say that I don't think I particularly struggle with songs that are mellow, like consistently mellow. Taylor has a lot of mellow songs later on in her catalog that I absolutely love. Some of my very favorite songs of hers even. But these ones on Fearless just don't really have the lyrical might to counterbalance the low and steady energy, in my opinion. And that's not to say that this song is bad lyrically or anything. I like some of the lines a lot, the voices not giving her choices, but if the music isn't going to take me on an emotional journey, then the lyrics kind of have to. And while I think this song describes one emotional state really well, and the music depicts one emotional state really well, sitting in one place, feeling one thing, does not a journey make. So, yeah, it's another very pretty Aaron song that I just can't get captivated by. Next up in the vault is That's When, and the first thing we get are these really percussive little acoustic guitar riffs, really gentle and really groovy, and it feels very fearlessy, which like yeah, the song is not fearless, but immediately the instrumental on this song just feels like it belongs among those first 6 songs on the album in a good way. And then Taylor's vocals are down in kind of a dark, deep whisper, which I'm just a really big fan of that dimension of her voice, something that's really far away from what she was capable of when she first recorded Fearless. And it's beautiful. It's one of my favorite vocal performances on the album. We also get a pretty good chorus. It's not exactly a big pop chorus. It's a bit more mellow than that, but it's got kind of a Hey Stevens style catchiness to it, more bob your head than belt along. This track features Keith Urban, who then comes in to sing the second verse. I'm not the biggest fan of Keith's voice, but it's fine. And what I like more than his verse are the 2 duet choruses that follow it. I think Taylor and Keith's voices actually really complement one another, and I actually think the second and third choruses are stronger than Taylor's chorus as well. This bridge is also another really short one, like a really short bridge, but it serves as a really nice little connecting piece between the second and third choruses, kind of pulling back the slingshot just a little bit to send us toward the back of the song. I really like that long drawn out honestly too. And maybe my favorite part of this track is actually the outro, where Taylor's kind of riffing at the top of the mix while several layers of backing vocals are kind of weaving around beneath her. It just sounds really full and balanced and spacious, where the vocal tracks and the guitars have all this room to breathe, but there's still so much going on. I really like that. There have been several songs on Taylor's discography for which my opinion has changed substantially over time. In a couple of very rare cases, a song that I kind of love wore out on me after a while, but much more commonly, songs that I didn't originally like very much suddenly click and I'm like, oh, I get it now. I understand the vibe here. I just wasn't paying attention in the right way, and now I am. And this next song from the vault, Don't You, was such a slow grower on me that it actually took until after the 1989 Taylor's version came out, which I think was about a year after I first listened to this song, for me to finally have that aha moment with it. If you're someone who's listened to the song recently, maybe you immediately understand why that is, but if you haven't, I recommend you listen to the 1989 Taylor's version vault tracks, then come back and listen to Don't You. Both Jack Antonoff's production style, his like synthy soundscape choices, and his slow but intense build-up and swelling energy, and also Taylor's breathy, kind of intimate, almost conversational vocal style, they're both extremely reminiscent of those 1989 vault tracks. And so the first several times, probably a dozen times I heard Don't You, it just wasn't cracking open for me. And then I felt absolutely in love, like head over heels in love with the 1989 vault tracks. I think they're so good. And when I came back to this song, I was like, oh my God, this is beautiful in the way that those are beautiful. It's a little understated for sure. I think it suffers a little bit from the common theme of these vault tracks of not really reaching for any big moments. And I definitely don't think the lyrics here are anything to write home about. It's some of the sparsest lyricism actually on the whole album. But man, that subtle synth swell, Jack working his magic, Taylor's voice, really restrained, but it has this kind of pleading quality to it. Like you feel both her begging him not to, but also pushing down the fact that part of her wants him to. It's all there in her voice. So yeah, just suddenly, the past few months, I get it now. And I actually think this more or less neck and neck with the next track is my favorite of the Fearless Vault tracks. Okay, and the final track with an asterisk next to it on Fearless Taylor's version is Bye Bye Baby. And it opens with such a beautiful little piano melody, so simple and so sweet, which gives way to a really kind of gentle, swaying acoustic guitar. I think this song is just really, really gorgeous. When the sounds are there, they're so pretty, the piano, the guitar, there's even a plucked violin in there in a couple of moments. But what this song also does really well is pulling all of that back to just let Taylor's voice and words be unfettered by anything. So like the start of the second verse, way back in the mix, there's a little bit of drum and bass just to hold the beat, but basically everything else is just open space for Taylor's voice. I don't think that would have worked at all on the original recording, to be honest, but it totally works now. And then when they fade those layers of backing vocals and instrumentation in, it feels like a really big difference, like this huge elevated chorus, even though it's actually really kind of simple because it's in contrast to the total emptiness before that it sounds so big. And that's really smart production, to know that you can make a chorus feel big while actually keeping it small if you just make everything else even smaller. It's the kind of thing that's really easy to mess up, actually. And Taylor and Jack just nailed it on this one. And it helps that it's a pretty catchy chorus, too. This is definitely a song that I sing along to. And speaking of singing, Taylor has some amazing vocals on this track. She absolutely knocks the bridge out of the park. And she hits a couple of big notes on the final chorus as well. And in spite of one of her more emotional and just like volume-wise loud vocal performances on any vault track, it never loses the feeling of being a very casual and smooth song. For sure a high point to end the album on, and for my money a much better and much more mature conclusion, and one that offers much more of an emotional resolution than Change, which had been the final track on both the standard and platinum editions of the record. So the thing is, when I said that Bye Bye Baby was the final track, it is. If you pull up this album on Spotify, Bye Bye Baby is the last track. If you bought it on CD, or you have the vinyl, Bye Bye Baby is the last track listed. But there's one more song that if you search for it on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, it's a single, but you'll find it has the same album cover as Fearless Taylor's version. And to explain this, you have to know, if you don't, that Taylor's next record, Speak Now, was notable for being entirely self-written. Right? Taylor was the sole songwriter on every single track on Speak Now, and it's a commonly talked about and written about fact about that album. Except she actually wasn't. On one song on Speak Now, there was a co-writer, and that song was track 16 on the deluxe edition called If This Was a Movie. So when Taylor was coming around to re-record Speak Now, she presumably wanted it to be genuinely actually 100% self-written, so she re-recorded If This Was a Movie, and decided that it was now effectively a Fearless song instead. It's very strange, and this song now occupies kind of a limbo space between two albums. But because I'm reviewing Taylor's version songs exclusively, and because this track has the Fearless Taylor's version album cover, and because it's not featured on Speak Now Taylor's version, I'm going to talk about it here. Even though, from what I've seen, I think most of Taylor's fans still think of this as a Speak Now song. So If This Was a Movie is definitely one of those tracks where the difference in production quality is most strongly felt between the original recording and Taylor's version. It feels like when you're watching a YouTube video, like on your phone, and you've got really bad reception and it all starts off in like blurry, pixelated 480p, and then suddenly the Wi-Fi connects and you're in this crystal clear 4K. It's just a total glow up between the way it sounds. The production on the original was really flat, and now it's actually really beautiful with these big orchestral strings behind everything in the choruses. There's like a wall of bright sound backdropping everything, and that little finger-picked acoustic guitar is really bright and glistening. And Taylor's vocals are, yeah, of course, much stronger as well. That said, I'm very mid on the melodies of this song. I think there are some good ideas in there, and sometimes this song hits me in the right mood, and sometimes it just doesn't, you know? You know what I do like, though? I like the fade out. What happened to fade outs? Bring back the fade out. I feel like the fade out has completely lost its place in pop music over the last few years, and this song fades out really gently, and I think it sounds great. So that's Fearless. Fearless in a lot of ways feels like a very natural sequel to her debut, and that it does basically everything that her debut record does, just better. The pop songs are catchier, the ballads hit harder, and the lyrics have definitely taken a step up. There was nothing super notable on this album lyrically, to be honest. Like, if you look at my full chart of song rankings, you'll notice a very clear trend that I think lyricism is the weakest part of this record. And if you're worried, rest assured, I think Taylor is the greatest pop lyricist of our generation, and I will go on to say many, many complimentary things about that on later records. What this record did do is it shed some of the more vapid and empty stuff from debut. Like, we might not be getting poetic masterpieces or anything yet, but we're not getting songs like A Place in This World or The Outside. And the verses here are stronger on average for sure. The verses on debut, more often than not, felt a little bit like filler, just kind of holding up the choruses, and that's much less frequently the case here. The production and instrumentation, too, have been turned up significantly even on the original recording of Fearless, and of course we can't even begin to compare the vocals on Taylor's version until we get debut TV, because the jump in production quality and the jump in her vocal delivery is astronomical. They're on two different planets. Taylor's vocals are so much more emotive and so much more controlled in the way she plays with emotion with her voice and the feeling and the tone of it. It would be basically impossible for me to overstate how much I think Taylor improved as a vocalist between 2008 and 2021, and how much her production has improved. Taylor's version, of course, also adds the vault tracks, not all of which are hits for me, and I still think it's really odd that the two that are produced by Aaron Dessner are the two that don't work for me, given how much I enjoy his production later in her career. But that aside, Jack's tracks are largely good, and I think they do make it a better album overall. It lets the album end on two really solid tracks back to back, and as you can see from the song rankings, I do think Fearless's strongest section is still that opening quarter of the album or so, but the next strongest section is definitely the final quarter with the vault tracks. I think there's a bit less to talk about contrasting Fearless and debut from like a more abstract creative perspective. The music and lyrical themes and ideas are very similar between the two records. It's really the quality of their conception and execution that's been improved. That said, we're definitely starting to take a step away from the country girl vibes and into a more classic, teenagery love life stuff. And you can hear that in the soundscapes too, where the country instrumentation, while definitely still here in places, isn't quite so prominent. And when it is here, it's not quite so traditional as it is on debut, which, as I imagine most people watching this know, is foreshadowing a trend that's going to continue on to her third studio album. When I finished listening to Debut for the first time, I remember thinking I wouldn't be super excited to see where this girl was going if she'd been like 25 when this album came out. But knowing that she was 16 when she was recording these tracks, I was really curious to see where it went. With Fearless, after listening to it, I was just excited. Like, no qualifiers necessary. I was just really down to see what was coming next, and cautiously optimistic that it was going to be another step up in all the ways that I think Fearless is a step up from her first album. Okay, it's videography time, and Fearless has a big one. Fearless has, by my count, 12 notable live performances. I'm going to call it 8.5 music videos. We'll get on why later. And of course, the Fearless tour. That's slightly more in total than Speak Now and just barely less than Red, and those three records have easily the largest videography errors, quite a bit above any other. I'm going to go through these in kind of a combined chronological and song-based order. So for example, we're going to start with the very first music video released in the Fearless era, but then we're going to jump to the live award show performance of that same song, so we can kind of avoid bouncing between songs and compare and contrast different depictions of the same music. And we'll just have to save the tour for the end, because I think that's best discussed as a whole thing unto itself. Alright, so the very first video release is the Change music video, which was released in August of 2008. In the debut era, Taylor had 4 cinematic videos, like the kind with sets and actors, and 2 videos that were basically compilations of home movies. Picture to Burn had a little bit of Taylor and the band playing to the camera, but this is really her first video that's just an old school artists and their band performing in front of the camera style. And honestly, I think this is the very last song that I would choose for a straightforward performance video like this. Like, my main critique of Change as a song is how vague and generic the lyrics and the imagery are. And so I think a music video is actually the perfect opportunity to specify those lyrics, to depict a story and say, here's this one specific narrative that applies to these lyrics. Like, there's some group of people overcoming adversity or celebrating a victory of some kind. It could be basically anything. But instead we get exactly the kind of video that doesn't tell a story at all for the song that I wish it told more of a story. That said, the video is filmed in a church, and for a song with a major refrain of Hallelujah, that's a cool choice. And I also think the lighting and the camera work is pretty solid here. Taylor's gotten really charismatic in front of a camera compared to the debut era, and she plays the starring role really well. It's just really a video where if you've seen 30 seconds of it, you've seen the whole thing. There aren't any surprises or diversions in store for you, so that's a little disappointing. Taylor's also got one notable live performance of Change, which came a year and a half later toward the end of the Fearless era in April of 2010 at the Academy of Country Music Awards. And once again, at least for the first few minutes of this performance, I was pretty underwhelmed. It starts off with Taylor standing in like a carriage, like a small metal vessel connected to the ceiling by wires. And for the first solid minute of the performance, it's just sitting there on the ground in the middle of the crowd. And it's like, we know it's going to lift up. We can see the wires that are attached to it. So all the excitement for how cool that would be if she's going to be in the air is fading away every second while we're just waiting for it to lift up. I can't imagine why they waited so long, but sure enough, a minute into the song, it takes off, and it goes on a very, very short ride across the crowd, and then lowers back down again. And that's the end of that gimmick. Really feels like an unnecessary decision to use it at all, if that's how they were going to handle it. But then, after Taylor lands, it turns out the white dress she was wearing was a tearaway, so she rips that off to reveal a black dress underneath, and now we got something going on. It's a costume change. I'm always down for a costume change. And then Taylor does a walk down some stairs through the crowd to the stage, and she's giving a bunch of high fives along the way. There's a lot of crowd interaction, and that's when the performance really starts to come alive. So when Taylor finally reaches the stage, there's another 20 seconds of the song or so before she goes into this fully arched back belting mode. And then suddenly there's this whole backing choir that's behind her for the final chorus. Like, that's the kind of big energy that this song needs, in my opinion. The lyrics of Change are so dramatic that I've always felt like the music and delivery just don't really sell them enough, and this particular performance, at least, completely resolves that. The guitar and the choir at the end feel genuinely really big. And this performance is also helped by the relatively little movement from Taylor. Just standing in the cage and then just standing on the stage let her focus on her vocals, and she doesn't struggle with breathing. And breathing issues during live performances definitely periodically crop up throughout her first few years. And then she just caps the whole thing off with a stage dive, which is really fun, even if afterwards watching her being carried off at the end by 6 huge dudes in full crucifixion pose was absurd. Next up chronologically, we've got September 2008's music video for Love Story. The styling and aesthetics of this video really work for me. For a song with a literary reference at its core, tying in what I read to be another literary reference in the music video is a really great idea. That historical imagery conjured by the Romeo and Juliet references in the lyrics comes to life with this kind of Regency-era Jane Austen, Charlotte Bronte kind of vibe in the video. Also, I know this might be a weird point, but I think this is her first music video without the use of extreme close-ups. So many of her early videos, for whatever reason, have these shots where the camera is effectively an inch away from her mouth or her eye or something for, I have no idea what reason. But the close-up shots here are much less weird and work way better in my opinion. We don't get a ton in the way of acting from Taylor or her co-star. It's a lot of empty expressions and stares. But the bits we do get do work well enough. The horse I thought did a great job. Please clap for the horse. I also like that Taylor is apparently developing a penchant for twists in her videos. This is the second one in which we've seen the events of the whole video are actually just imagined in her head, and it's revealed at the end that they didn't actually take place. I just think that's really fun. From a narrative perspective, I think it's really fun. I also think it can kind of be seen as a metaphor for her songwriting, right? Like, these stories she's telling are based on things in her real life, but given imaginary details and flourishes in her mind in the process of translating her factual lived experiences into her song lyrics. And so that's what we see play out, is both her real life, or some close proxy to it, and also this dramatized, imagined version of it, which I think is precisely what her songs themselves were doing at this point. So that's pretty cool. Overall, I feel like this video is like more iconic than good. Like, this video is very strongly tied to Love Story as a song for a lot of people. At least that's the impression that I've gotten online. So I was expecting to like it a little bit more than I did, but it's fine. It's pretty, it's fitting. I think it's probably my second favorite video of hers, actually, after Picture to Burn. Like Change, Love Story also has one notable live performance, and in this case it comes just 2 months after the video is released at the Country Music Awards in November of 2008. And the first thing I have to say about this is just a shout out to Brad Paisley for a really wonderful introduction. I have no idea if he wrote it or who did, but he gives this line, "Once upon a time, our next performer graduated from high school. That time was earlier this year." That's a 10 out of 10 line. Once upon a time sets up the kind of historical romance vibe of the song, and then it points out just what an absurdity it is that Taylor is so incredibly young here and already performing at this major nationally televised award show. So shout out Brad for that. But then we get into the performance, and for whatever reason, the audio here is just a mess. Taylor's vocal delivery in the early parts of the song is very quiet. She's not projecting much at all, and either she didn't do it that way in rehearsals, or they just didn't calibrate for it, or they just didn't mix the audio properly afterwards, because her voice just gets absolutely buried by a cacophony of cymbal crashes in the first chorus. The cymbals probably could have been dampened too. It's a real shame, but she does start to project more later, and they might have also made a small on-the-fly tweak to the mic or something, but in any case, it gets better as the song goes on. It seems like they were trying to strike a balance here between not having her move around too much, and therefore struggle with her breath, but also make sure the performance felt sufficiently dynamic and exciting, and I think they mostly achieved that here. The dancers really keep the stage feeling alive even as Taylor is actually hardly moving at all, and she gives us some good expressions and body language to make sure she still feels like she's a part of the performance too. I'm particularly partial to the little frown during the bridge. That's really good. And of course the costume swap just in time for the pick out a white dress line is really good stuff. They had to fill that extra 7 or 8 seconds there to give her time to actually physically change costumes, and they really nailed that. In fact, I actually think that little musical build-up in there to get you hyped for the drop works better than the studio version of the song. Like, that's just a really, really nice little bit in there. I like that a lot. And then much like that incredible Shoulda Said No performance at the 2008 ACMs, this one ends with Taylor just looking adorably delighted and surprised by how positive of a reaction she was getting from the crowd. I don't think Taylor at this age really thought anyone was going to like her nearly as much as they did. The shock on her face, I believe it completely. I don't think it's feigned. She's genuinely stunned. Next up is February of 2009, when we get the White Horse music video. And immediately, I regret saying that thing about how I was glad the extreme close-up shots have gone away, because this video starts with these shots of 2 disembodied pairs of lips. Like, why? Why are we doing this? I don't understand. I don't understand. The main standout for this video for me is Taylor's acting, actually. It's good. We have a lot of very samey shots of her with the same expression from the same angle, but she's very believably sad and crying here. And in my experience, crying is one of the hardest things for an amateur actor to do convincingly. But that sob she lets out right after she hangs up the phone, the body language and the sound are both bang on for my money. There is this one bit that really doesn't work for me, which is the boy holding the grocery bag in front of the house. Taylor looks completely heartbroken, and he looks like he has no idea who she is, or even what's going on. Come on, man, just give us a little bit of like an I can't explain type look, or maybe some embarrassment or some shame, but man is just holding his groceries. That's it. It's just holding the bag, nothing going on. That aside, this song does also have one of those little mid-song interruptions where the music cuts away for a brief exchange between Taylor and a friend at the cafe, where her friend tells her, "There's something you should know about him, ... I normally dislike when music videos do that kind of thing, and I do think they could have probably conveyed the same thing with just good acting and editing without needing to actually hear them talking and stop the music, but it's so short that I don't really mind it that much, and I appreciate that there was actually some effort put into giving us a complete narrative here in the video, and I'm sure that's why they felt like it was worth it. And then, interestingly, for I think the 3rd or 4th time in Taylor's videography to this point, the very first shot of the video ends up foreshadowing the final shot of the video. It's not like a twist ending, but it still has this connection between the beginning and the end where it kind of loops back around. It's a tried and true method of conveying a sense of conclusion, and it works, and she keeps doing it, but I'm ready for something else now. Whitehorse also has two notable live performances that I'll touch on just briefly because I don't think there's a ton to say about either of them. The first one was at the 2008 American Music Awards, and a bit like the Change performance, Taylor once again had me thinking this is going to be completely uneventful, right until somewhere around the bridge, and then suddenly she pulls out some trick to bring the whole performance to life. In this case, Taylor spends the majority of the song sitting on a couch surrounded by these fake candles and her band. It's played extremely straight. The piano in particular is really nice, but overall it's just not a performance that really lends the song any color or emotion until Taylor gets up for the bridge, and then she just flips some switch inside and really just punches the bridge out with so much more intensity and feeling than we got in the whole rest of the way. The line, "Who might actually treat me well," is like snarled. It's just full of bitterness and sadness and anger. She just really crushes the bridge, and I think it's the one saving grace for a performance that's otherwise, honestly, kind of forgettable and possibly my least favorite live performance of hers to this point. She also did this song at the Grammy nominations. This one is once again devoid of any real visuals to speak of, but this time Taylor actually splits up the performance between two different songs. So the first half is a very unexpected rendition of Brenda Lee's "I'm Sorry." If you don't know that song, it really relies completely on vocal charisma and giving the lyrics flavor with your vocal delivery, and I wasn't particularly optimistic about Taylor pulling that off at this age, but she's gotten much better at that, and she totally does. It's not going to blow your mind or anything, but it checks all the boxes, and I don't really have any complaints about it. And then it drops straight into a very abbreviated version of Whitehorse, and despite the brevity, you'd think that they would just give you like one verse and one chorus, but they actually include the bridge in there instead. And just like at the AMAs, Taylor does a really great job of conveying the emotions of those lyrics, though maybe not quite as good as last time, but it was still really smart to include the bridge. And then before you know it, it's a wrap. It's another pretty quick and easily forgotten one, honestly. Alright, it's October 2009, and we get the fourth music video of the era with 15. The first thing that jumped out at me watching this for the first time is that I'd seen this same girl in multiple Taylor videos now. She's the redhead named Abigail here, but she was in the car in Picture to Burn, and I was pretty sure she popped up at some point in the "I'm Only Me When I'm With You" like home video shots. So I go to Google, and it turns out that this is actually Taylor's real-life best friend, and she's actually named Abigail, and she's actually a redhead. And I was just like, that's the coolest thing. She's taken her best friend along for the ride and put her in a bunch of her music videos. And it also means that this girl described in the lyrics of this song is actually in the music video for the song that's about her. And that's just wild. I'm not sure I've ever seen anything else quite like that before. And now, in retrospect of the whole project, of course, I know that this is not the last time that we will see Abigail. In terms of the visuals of the 15 video, someone on Taylor's team clearly decided early on that her brand was barefoot in flowy dresses, and they are keeping true to that, even when we probably could have done something more interesting. Besides the familiar clothing, though, the rest of the visuals in this video are really interesting and strange. Like, even when it's clearly sunny, the whole set is lit in this dark, kind of eerie, dreamlike way, and then we jump to this moonlit night for just a moment, before suddenly we're in this stormy overcast with cartoon tree branches blowing around, and then there's one more abrupt cut at the very end to this starkly real-world shot that has a totally different vibe than anything else in the video so far. It's just really kind of baffling, sharp juxtapositions between these different sets, and I can't really explain it and don't really understand it. Like, how was all of that imagery serving the narrative of this song? Maybe I just need to think about it more. But hey, look, whatever else I can say about this video, it is not forgettable. The weird visuals definitely stand out. With all that said, I thought Taylor gave a good performance, conveying both the happiness and the sadness entailed in the song, and that shot of grown-up Taylor at the end was really interesting. It's both a reminder that the Taylor who wrote this song was really young, and she wasn't many years detached from being a 15-year-old herself, and also it's a glimpse at Taylor's conception of a more mature version of herself, which definitely doesn't look quite like anything we've seen from Taylor by October of 2009, but very much does match a look that she'll go on to have in the next year or so that's pretty neat. Like Whitehorse, 15 has two notable live performances as well. The first one was at the 2009 Grammys, which is Taylor's very first Grammys performance, and it's an unexpected duet with Miley Cyrus, and I've got complicated feelings about it. First, I'll say that I think Miley is an extremely underrated singer. Go watch her Backyard Sessions if you haven't. She's very, very good, and even as young as she was here, she still clearly had some chops. Her performance is really solid. Taylor, too, I think does a pretty good job here. This is actually one of my favorite live vocal performances from her to this point in her career. So you'd think both of them give a good vocal performance? That's great. These two just have such dramatically different voices and singing styles, and seemingly dramatically different ideas about how to perform this song, and it just creates this really clunky, awkward contrast. Like, Taylor will let out these really gentle, solemn lines, and then Miley comes in and just smacks them out of the park with like a big belt, and the song just gets lost somewhere between the two of them. And again, as individual performers, neither of them really do anything wrong here. It's just the wrongness was whoever thought, you know who we should get to duet with Taylor on this track? is Miley Cyrus, and then let's not tell either of them how the other person plans on singing it. It was still a lot of fun to watch these two so early in their careers having this little moment there. Like, neither of them have quite found their image yet. Miley is still looking very much like Hannah Montana, and Taylor is still looking very country, and it just gets points from me for the cute nostalgia factor of like, wow, did you know these two did a song together when they were teenagers, and then seeing them like at the 2024 Grammys together. But it's an imperfect attempt. Taylor then performed 15 again at the 2009 Country Music Awards, and I like this one more for sure. It's super cute. Shout out to whoever came up with the idea to put Taylor on the world's tiniest little stage, surrounded by a couple hundred teenage girls who love her and know all the words to her song. She's done some really good live performances so far that were clearly well received by the audience, like when she broke George Strait's mind at the 2008 ACMs, but this is the first time we've really seen a real telling glimpse at just what Taylor was on the verge of becoming, and it's already kind of insane. So Taylor's performance here is very chill and straightforward, just her and her guitar, no backing vocals or no backing instrumentation at all, and I actually think that's a perfect fit for this style of like intimate live performance, and it's made all the better by just how loudly the mic picks up the crowd, or maybe they even directly mic'd up the audience. She's practically got a choir for her for this, and it's just really fun to watch. It's not going to blow your mind, it's not like super eventful, and it's not her best vocals, but I would challenge you to watch this one and not crack a couple of smiles. It's just really fun to watch. Oh, and there's this one shot around 30 seconds into the song in which a group of like 20 girls are all swaying in unison and they're all singing along while this one incredibly awkward looking boy with a buzz cut is just chewing gum motionlessly. And I went back and rewatched that like 5 times. It's pure gold. He's the archetypal, like, uncomfortable teenage boy who's just here for his girlfriend and isn't sure what to do with his body. It's great stuff. Next up, we've reached November 2009 for Taylor's live performance of Forever and Always at the CMAs, and my favorite non-tour live performance of the Fearless era. It starts off with Taylor in this mock interview where she's being questioned like 60 Minutes style about writing songs about boys she's broken up with, at the end of which Taylor says that if boys don't want songs written about them, they shouldn't do bad things. And that line directly bridges over from the studio shot to the live stage. And obviously, when 1989 comes along, we get quite a bit of Taylor clapping back at the media with her music. But if you were like me at the time that I watched this, having only listened to her albums, having not seen any of her live performances, or really knowing anything about her personal life, you wouldn't have known that she'd ever really done anything like that before 1989. But she totally did here. She said, if these interviewers want to keep asking me the same boring questions about boys over and over, I can use that. And that energy here feels like the very first seed that will eventually grow into 1989 and into Reputation. It's my favorite thing that I'd yet discovered through this videography deep dive. And frankly, I really like everything about this performance from a conceptual level. I like her outfit here, I like the minimal but bold stage design with the bright red screens, I like the interview chairs and the fire pole on one side of the stage and the band on the other, and I love her performativity. She's got so much stage presence here, dancing around, headbanging, gesturing with her arms, throwing the chair. I love that she throws the chair. She's holding the stage entirely on her own, like a true professional entertainer. The flip side of that is that this is definitely one of the weakest vocal performances to date, if not her weakest. She has a little trouble with breathing again, but more than that, she just kind of fell short of the notes several times in the choruses, particularly the first chorus, which admittedly are some of the highest and hardest notes in her catalog at this point. And she doesn't miss them by a mile or anything, but it's off by enough that your ear immediately tells you that that ain't it. Still, for me, I'm relatively forgiving of little things like that. I don't expect a live performance to nail every note. I just want to see entertaining renditions of a song, and I definitely had a lot of fun watching this, and I think it's the best stage concept and best overall performance that she's done since back in the 2008 ACM Should Have Said No performance that I keep referencing. So recall that I mentioned Taylor had 8.5 music videos in this era. We're going to take a brief intermission from Taylor's actual videos to talk about a video that's not Taylor's, but in which Taylor is prominently featured, which is Kellie Pickler's The Best Days of Your Life, a song which Taylor actually co-wrote and on which she performed backing vocals. The video ended up featuring way more of Taylor than I was expecting for a song in which she's not technically featured. That said, it's still not a lot to talk about, just studio shots and brief clips of Kellie's friends and her ex, and I wasn't going to mention it at all in this project until 2 minutes and 30 seconds into the video, when the antagonist of the song gets hit by a bus, Regina George style, and ends up sprawled out in a full body cast in the hospital room. Nothing in the video at that point prepares you for that, and it just cracked me up. So anyway, the studio shots of Taylor playing the guitar and singing are, they're fine. It's a passable music video, and it's cool that Kellie decided to include Taylor so much, but in my humble opinion, this video really exists as an excuse to watch a man get hit by a bus and Taylor give a big dramatic "that's gotta hurt" wince. It's so stupid and funny. Next up is the Crazier video in March of 2009, and this is a little bit of a weird one since it's not really a music video in a way. It's like a compilation of clips from the Hannah Montana movie, including some extra scenes of Taylor performing that weren't included in the original film. Though I think some of them were. I haven't seen it. I imagine there wasn't a lot of creative control afforded to Taylor or anyone on her team. Disney probably just said, if Taylor agrees to be in the movie, we'll make a music video out of it too. But hey, the result is that there's a lot of high-quality cinematic footage of a love story playing out between professional actors, which isn't something you get for a lot of music videos, and that certainly fits the song really well too. I also think the general vibe of this like Roadhouse-esque country bar and the cowboy hats and the big open fields really fits Taylor's early career aesthetic well. There's just something really chill about the pacing and the editing here that just sinks you into the warm, romantic feeling of the song. So while this definitely isn't anything special, it's really pleasant and it feels nice, and I just kind of like it. So then we're in April 2009, and Taylor's performing at the ACMs again, and this time it's You're Not Sorry. And I really think this one's a letdown after how great last year's was. The whole performance is strictly Taylor sitting at the piano. No theatrics, no set design, which means we only really have 3 things to focus on. The arrangement, which is pretty nice. I like the strings in particular, although despite sitting at a piano, we strangely get very little actual piano playing in the mix. 2, Taylor's vocals, not her strongest vocal performance by any stretch, but it's an impassioned one. And then 3, her performativity, which is pretty good. She's selling the song with her facial expressions and body language the whole way through. But in general, I think this kind of performance is kind of a mistake. Like at this point in Taylor's career, she's not a particularly consistent vocalist, but she is already a super charismatic performer. So designing something like this that puts so much weight onto the vocals and gives her so little room to perform, it's just not playing to her strengths, and it's pointing to all of her weaknesses. It's not what she should be doing. Still, I appreciated the passion and the emotion she put into this. She's clearly trying, and that alone basically saves this whole performance. Alright, so it's just 1 month later, May of 2009, and we get the Best Day music video. And I just can't get over how cute the opening scene of this video is. Taylor's getting called beautiful by her mom, and she responds with her tiny little baby voice, "Thank you. Thanks for saying that." My heart. Andrea asking, "What do you have in your hair, Taylor?" And Taylor casually responds with, "Spiders." I was honestly shocked that this wasn't like a huge meme among Swifties, because that's just a spectacularly weird thing to say, and I'm all about it. Like, why did little Taylor think that she had spiders in her hair? I don't even want to know. I just accept it for what it is, and I think it's hilarious. This whole video is just utterly precious, and it's a perfect compliment to perhaps the sweetest song she's ever written. We're just straight up seeing the song, right? The visuals are there, sometimes exactly literally as they're described in the lyric. Even though it's not like the greatest music video ever made or anything, it's hard to imagine that there was any better way to do a music video for a song like this than to show the home movies that are depicting what Taylor's describing. And actually what's interesting about me saying that is that they remade this music video for Taylor's version of Fearless in 2021. And it is essentially the same video in spirit, but with some new different clips from Taylor's home movies. The remade version does a couple of things. One, it showcases how horrible YouTube's quality was in 2009. But we're looking at her home movies filmed on VHS tapes in the 90s, and they still look way better in the new version. It also does a slightly better job of matching up the particular clips being shown to the relevant lyrics, like cutting to shots of Taylor's dad and brother when they're referenced. And 3, they left out the spiders in the hair bit. Ugh. So, also in May of 2009, we get the one I'd been waiting for, which is the You Belong With Me music video. I've got to leave with saying that this is one of, if not the only Taylor Swift music video that I was already familiar with before I started diving into her videography. I distinctly recall when this came out, and it may have been the first time I'd ever actually seen Taylor Swift. Like, I'd heard our song on the radio, definitely, but I don't think I ever actually knew what she looked like until this video dropped, and it was immediately iconic. Like, everybody and their mother knew this video. It was just an absolute culture bomb. Now, was Single Ladies also a cultural bomb? 100%. It was. But I don't think I'd ever actually known until I was watching this in the context of the chronology of her videos that this was the video that beat it at the VMAs that provoked Kanye to run on stage and do what Kanye did. And frankly, with that knowledge, if any video was going to beat Single Ladies, I think this is a pretty damn legendary music video. Like, I don't think it's obviously true that Single Ladies is better. It's a close call. Anyway, the outfits in this video are amazing. Low-key, my favorite look of the video, even though it's comparatively forgotten, is the periodic table t-shirt Taylor. Taylor's acting, from trying on personas in the mirror, to the shy girl on the bench with the glasses, to the ridiculous dancing in the bedroom, to the villain cheerleader, is easily her best in any video to date for sure. The whole premise of her playing both the hero and the villain, of the nerdy girl and the popular boy having a secret friendship through their bedroom windows, the pieces of paper that come together at the end to reveal that he's had a crush on her just like she's been crushing on him. It's just really clever, and it's classic, and it's feel good, and it works basically flawlessly. It's everything you want from a music video for a song like this, executed beautifully in pretty much all departments. When Taylor's 60 years old, this video is still going to be included in the highlight reels of her career and as a part of her cultural legacy. Taylor performed You Belong With Me at the CMT Awards the next month, June of 2009, and the performance is a direct homage to the music video, featuring like stripped down versions of the video sets, which is really smart. The video was a sensation, lean into it. She gives a really colorful performance, adding a little extra spice to some of the lines, and the cheerleading dancers, those are a really great touch. On top of all of that, given how much she moves around here, this is almost certainly her most impressive live vocal performance to date. Like, she just crushes it the whole way through. It's a substantial step up from pretty much everything else she's ever done while moving around that much. But the CMTs also featured two other performances from Taylor. One was when Taylor joined Def Leppard on stage for Pour Some Sugar on Me. So Taylor's out there with his hair metal band, and I actually thought it was a really smart arrangement. They left the vast majority of the song to the band, giving Taylor basically just the intro and the chorus refrains, and mostly leaving her to do just a bunch of crowd work and dancing. And I think that was a much better choice than having Taylor like trade verses or something like that. She adds the perfect amount of flavor and charisma to the performance while also ensuring that we still get the exact song that everyone already knows. It's just really tasteful and fun, and I was not expecting to like this performance at all, but it's not bad actually, it's really not. But neither of those two performances are what anyone remembers about Taylor Swift at the 2009 CMT Awards. What they remember is a little pre-recorded video clip of Taylor and auto-tune aficionado T-Pain performing not Love Story, but Thug Story. Without a doubt, the weirdest thing Taylor had done in her entire career to this point, and possibly since. I can easily see how some cynical people out there think this is super cringe or whatever, but it's way too self-aware for that. They know they're doing something dumb, and they're having a blast with it. I love that T-Pain and Taylor were both willing to do a thing that was so ridiculous that they knew people were going to roast it, and there are a couple genuinely funny moments in there, like Taylor's mom's cameo, and the way that T-Pain's voice is still being auto-tuned even when he's just talking at the end. And plus, it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's like 90 seconds long at most. I just like watching people have fun and be silly, and this is nothing if not that. It's a lot of fun. It's very silly. Moving along in 2009, and we're in September when we get the You Belong With Me performance and Taylor's very first time performing at the VMAs. It's a really fun concept. So Taylor starts performing in a subway station in New York City before getting on the subway, performing for the whole ride, then running out of the subway with this huge crowd following her to finish the song in the street in front of Radio City Music Hall. It's a pretty seamless recording too. If this footage wasn't all from a single take, they did a really great job at concealing that in the editing booth because it looks legit to me. And there's something just undeniably cool about a performance as elaborate as this one, feeling like an uninterrupted shot from point A to point B. I'd actually thought at first that this was maybe the first example we'd seen of Taylor lip syncing, especially about a minute or so into the performance. Her vocals here are such a close match to the studio version, but then paying closer attention throughout the rest of the video, I don't think it is, or at least I'm sure there's a backing track going on here. Maybe some adjustments are being made in post, but there are definitely live vocals in the mix, and they're just really good. Taylor is undoubtedly starting to improve as a vocalist this year, and it's especially evident in these songs that really suit her voice's capabilities. And You Belong With Me is exactly that. So both the live performances of this track have just become among her best vocal performances of her career to this point. Moving on to the final live performance of 2009, it's November, and Taylor is hosting Saturday Night Live. So Seth Meyers tells a story about her opening monologue. If you haven't seen this video of Seth, you should go watch that, where he says that Taylor was the only SNL guest that he was ever aware of who wrote their own monologue. Like, the SNL writers had prepared a monologue script for her, just like they had for every other host, but Taylor shows up at just 19 years old and is like, hey, I wrote a monologue. What do you And he looks at it and it's just miles better than what they'd written for her, and they're just like, go for it. The stage is yours. That alone is just an incredible story. Anyway, Taylor starts her monologue with a couple of lines and a couple quick jokes. Completely lands the delivery on them, by the way. Taylor's genuinely very funny, and it's obvious here. She doesn't look the slightest bit nervous to be hosting SNL as a teenager, which is insane in its own right. But then Taylor's like, I wrote a song for my monologue, aptly named Monologue Song, in parentheses, la la la. So before she even starts the song, like, the name of the song is funny. And then she starts it, and her combination of like the naive, smiling girl energy that she's giving off with these immediate digs at all of her exes is just really great. And she doubles down when she hits us with the, hey Joe, I'm doing really well, followed by switching from la 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 to ha ha ha, which just totally kills with the audience. It's perfect comedic delivery. It got a real genuine laugh out of me. And then there's the kiss and the wave, and the little duck and the paranoid glancing around, and then Jason Sudeikis showing up with the Wanted poster, and then ending it with the incredible "and Kanye West is not here." They're all just done with equally great acting and timing. I've watched a lot of SNL monologues, and I've seen a lot of really awkward ones, even from professional actors who you would imagine would be able to do this kind of thing pretty well. And this is genuinely and this is genuinely one of the best that I've seen from anybody of any age, and only one of a handful that made me laugh out loud like more than once. I can't think of a single thing that you could critique about it, honestly. It was really well written. It was performed as if she was an old pro at this, like she had done live comedy 100 times before, which I have to assume she had literally never done before. It's just impeccable. I had to go back and rewatch it a second time right after I finished it the first time because I was just so entertained. As silly as it is, this is actually maybe my personal favorite moment of the entire Fearless era. I just love it. Okay, so we've entered 2010, and Taylor's performing at the Grammys for the second time in the second year in a row. First, we get a little bit of Today Was a Fairy Tale, one of my least favorite songs in Taylor's whole catalog, but I actually like this performance somewhat better than the studio version. One of the main reasons why I'm not a big fan of this song, like I said earlier, is that repetition of the Today Was a Fairy Tale line 16 times over the track, but it's abbreviated here. They cut the song down to just about 90 seconds, which prevents it from overstaying its welcome in the way that, in my opinion, the studio recording kind of does. So I thought that was pretty decent, actually. I like Taylor's look here, too. They did a good job with her hair and makeup and outfit, and her vocals are okay. But then apparently the same guy from last year who had the bad idea to pair up Taylor and Miley together, he must have shown up again, because the next thing you know, Taylor introduces Stevie Nicks to the stage, and the band starts playing the intro to Rhiannon, and I was immediately very deeply concerned about this. Taylor's voice at this point in her career is just not at all suited to be directly side by side compared to Stevie Nicks, and to sing a song that is not remotely easy to sing. In fact, no one is really qualified for that, let alone Taylor. And it goes okay, actually. It could have been much worse, I think, and I'm glad they sang together for most of it instead of giving Taylor too much in the way of like solo vocals here. That was smart. But then we transition into a really curious version of the Love Story. Like the instrumentation here is just off. The pacing of it is just a little off. I really don't like it. And Stevie Nicks is somehow even less well suited to be singing Love Story than Taylor was to be singing Rhiannon. And it's not a dig on Stevie. It's just not actually clear to me whether she even knows all the words to the song. But luckily, she's very quiet in the mix, and Taylor's performance there is fine. I don't know what made someone think that they should put these two together on a stage. Just like with her and Miley, their voices are just so different, but the end result could have been worse. You know, Taylor does okay with Rhiannon. Stevie's more or less inaudible for Love Story, and I'm sure the opportunity to perform with Stevie was just like a dream come true moment for Taylor, so that's great for her. But really, the best thing about this performance for everyone else is that a critic apparently laid into Taylor so hard for it that it inspired her to write the track Mean on her next album, a song that I love dearly and wouldn't do without, so I'm glad about that. Alright, and then the last video of the era before diving into the tour is the Fearless music video, and fittingly, this video is just a compilation of clips from the Fearless tour, so there's not really much to say about any of the shots themselves that I won't be going into in more detail in a moment, but I do think this is a pretty well-crafted video with some fun moments and good editing to match the big moments of the song with big moments in the video. I suppose if you've got to get a video out for this song quick for some reason, and you've got a bunch of tour footage to use, and you want to promote the tour that she's on, it'll do the trick. That said, I don't really imagine anyone's ever coming back to this and rewatching it on the regular. So, the Fearless Tour was released as an official recording called Taylor Swift Journey to Fearless, and if you haven't seen it, I do highly recommend it. It's produced really well. It doesn't cut off the songs all too badly, and it includes a huge amount of behind-the-scenes footage and interviews with Taylor, her family, her friends Abigail is here again, and her band. So, just to be crystal clear, I did not attend the Fearless Tour. I got into Taylor's music at the tail end of 2022, way too late for that. So all of these reviews are based entirely on watching that official recording of it. The tour opens with You Belong With Me, and I really like the kind of in media res start, putting a little snippet of her biggest chorus right at the very start of the show. Taylor also reliably does fun vocal stuff on this song, putting on like silly little voices for lines like "She's Cheer Captain," and it works really well with the upbeat, lighthearted vibe of the track. Then we even get a costume change and a unique little vibe shift in the bridge before she milks the hell out of the crowd to build up the maximum possible hype. Really solid start to the tour. If this was a standalone award show performance, I'd call this one of her better ones for sure. Then we get a little behind the scenes on Taylor's career, and it's truly awesome for someone like me who'd gotten into this so out of the loop. I had so much catching up to do. Like, until I watched this, I had no idea that she straight up walked away from her RCA development deal. I didn't know that she joined Big Machine literally from before day one. I didn't know that she opened up for Tim McGraw or George Strait. So it's a pretty cool origin story, and I understand why she wanted to include that here. It really makes you want to root for Taylor. The second track is Tim McGraw, and for this one, Taylor really just straight up walked out into the crowd, hugging and kissing and thanking people for coming in the middle of the song. And that's wild. I mean, it's a brilliant way to connect with your fans and establish yourself as someone who they personally care about. Like, you meet them individually, and now they're forever devoted to you, right? But boy, talk about something I couldn't even begin to imagine 2024 Taylor Swift doing. Like, the difference in fame and fandom that she's had over the past 14 years is crazy. And as always, I'm a fan of little lyrical tweaks to match the performance, so the Houston radio line is a cute touch. Next up, I really like this rendition of 15. Super slowed down first verse and chorus. And then she really lights the spark at the end of that first chorus and brings the song up closer to the studio version's energy. Man, the girl worked that hair. When she's holding a guitar or sitting down and can't move around, she's gonna swing her hair around instead. It's a little bit of a shame to not get the whole performance here in the recording, but it was also really cool to see those clips of Abigail and hear her feelings about the song that's written in large part about her. I really was not expecting this tour video to be providing so much of this background footage and behind the scenes info like that, and I was just eating it up personally. So then Taylor goes into Teardrops on My Guitar, and the way she tells the story of her and her crush before the song starts is just so ridiculously charismatic and performative. It's really simple and it's scripted. Sure, she says the same thing every night, but a lot of people just straight up can't tell a story that good. You know, it's a genuine talent that she's got you entirely in the palm of her hand, just talking, not even singing. And then we get quite a different rendition of that song itself, actually, with a substantially more upbeat instrumental. And I don't know that I would say that I think it's better than the studio version of it, but I do think it's really well suited for this tour performance. Sometimes you don't want to bring the whole energy down for a sad ballad. And this rendition really keeps the energy high and lets her play one of her most popular, kind of famous songs, but a very slow song, while keeping the fans riding that high. The fifth track of the tour is Our Song, and man, the absolute swagger of handing over the chorus vocals to the crowd, 20 years old. Like, especially in the context of watching these behind the scenes clips of how her career had really just started a few years earlier with some unknown new label. To be able to go out and trust that this massive crowd is going to scream every word of your song is pretty incredible. This particular rendition from Taylor was pretty much bang on the studio version of the performance and free of any kind of extravagance, but I wouldn't really expect her to make any changes to one of her best known songs. People want to hear the version that they know on the album, and that's what she gave them. Okay, so song 6 is Today Was a Fairy Tale, and I just want to point out, even in this tour video produced by Taylor's team, they still cut this track down to just 60 seconds before they switch over to another behind the scenes video about set design, and then they come back and do another 90 seconds of it after you've had a couple minutes away. I'm telling y'all, there's no world in which this track should be 4 minutes long and include 16 Today Was a Fairy Tales, and I think even whoever was editing this video kind of knew that. It's really solid for just like a minute and a half. That's the sweet spot. Oh, and I've got to make a brief mention of the behind the scenes moment where Taylor's standing on the stage for the very first time and excitedly declares, I could fall off of this and die, which is awesome. I love that for her. Next up is Love Story, and I really love the staging for this one. The fact that they were able to duplicate the castle and the costumes and the dancers from the music video works even better for this than it did for the You Belong With Me performance. They even carried over the costume swap from the CMAs, which if you recall, I thought was the best part of that performance, and they included that little musical interlude there too. So in that sense, I guess it does feel a lot like a performance that I've already seen before, but it's still really impressive that they recreated it on a nightly basis on the tour, and if you're going to recreate a performance, that was a good one to recreate. After that is Hey Stephen, and once again, we get the kind of thing that's super cool and yet that we would never see from Taylor in 2023. We basically get that Tim McGraw style performance again, right in the crowd, hugging and kissing people. Hey Stephen is such a chill song, and I think it's a really great choice for doing this kind of performance. I really enjoyed the extended instrumental interlude when she went and walked through the crowd with just like a bass line at the forefront. I'm pretty sure that's the bass line from Stand By Me, actually, which is kind of cool. And then that laugh she lets out on this song feels entirely genuine. Like she just let her joy from the performance bubble up for a second, and she laughed. And it's just really feel good stuff. So then there's this really fun video intermission called Crimes of Passion. I've seen a lot of intermission videos at concerts, and usually they're not particularly interesting. They're just filling time while the stage crew does their work or costume changes take place. But here we see Tim McGraw on the screen describe himself as the first victim of a Taylor Swift song. And then we see a clip of Taylor asking her boyfriend to spell his name for her after he gives her a toaster as a present, which is just top tier intermission content right there. And a really surprising amount of like self-awareness from Taylor. Like apparently she's just always been incredibly comfortable leaning into the memes about herself. And like later on, we learn very much that they hurt her sometimes and she feels the critiques of the media, but she embraces it with just grace, honestly, and just turns it to her own advantage more often than not, even at such a young age. And then we get this tea party scene, which is also just absolutely adorable and pretty selfless, honestly. There's this shot where Taylor just walks in and scoops up this little tiny kid, and then the next thing you know, these little girls are just sobbing their hearts out by just like beholding her. Like she was already selling out these shows. She didn't need to promote more ticket sales. And the amount of time and energy that she had to devote to a bunch of people she doesn't know after she just finished performing a 2-hour set on the road, it just seems like quite a lot more energy is required for this than your typical post-show meet and greet, picture and leave kind of thing. And you got to respect that. Her devotion to her fans is just on another level already. All right, so we're back to performances with Tell Me Why. And for making almost no use of the stage at all, this is maybe the most high energy and performative song of the show so far. There's so much dancing and moving. A special spotlight is on each of her band members at some point, and they each kind of do a little instrumental solo. And we also get really solid vocals from Taylor in spite of all this movement. There are no gimmicks here, it's just an excellent stage performance of a pop song. It's all charisma and it's a celebration of the song. And honestly, this performance makes me enjoy Tell Me Why more than I do just listening to the studio recording, which is basically all you can hope for from a live performance. Then there's this little clip of Taylor's surprise Mother's Day performance of The Best Day for her mom, who is just clearly barely keeping it together. And yeah, it is obviously the cutest thing in the entire world. You already can imagine that, and there's nothing more for me to say about it. Okay, so next up is the title track. This song has some of the most dynamic vocals off her first two albums, and she does a really great job with them here. It could just be that she's a really talented performer putting on a show, but I get the impression that Taylor particularly enjoyed performing this track live. She just seems to be having a lot of fun, and that fun is contagious. I love her bringing up all the other musicians in a line at the front of the stage. Not a lot of huge star solo artists are going to do that, and it's a really classy look. And once again, Taylor gives a little shout out to the city in the lyrics, and I never don't love that. Next up is my second favorite performance of the show, which is Forever and Always. Kind of like the Love Story performance was more or less the 2008 CMA's performance just carried over to the tour. This is basically that '09 CMA's performance, complete with the interview clip beforehand, which conceptually remains my favorite Taylor live performance to this point in her career. And if you recall, my only real critique of that was that she really struggled with her vocals at the time. But here she's got another year of experience under her belt and a much better setup in general to support her voice. She only even goes for the really high notes when she's sitting still, and then she brings them down a bit when she's moving around a bunch, which is super smart, and it's exactly what any vocal coach would recommend. She probably got a vocal coach at some point in this process. And when I say moved around, boy, does she move around. I mean, she is all over the stage, running and jumping and headbanging. And we also get a unique little twist on the bridge here. And once again, we get Taylor directly, physically connecting with the audience. This performance has a little bit of everything. It's my favorite live performance to this point in the project, although it's about to be topped in a moment. So the penultimate song is Picture to Burn. If comparing the CMA's version of Forever and Always to the tour version wasn't enough proof, this song is really definitive evidence of Taylor's improvement as a live vocalist and performer. She's moving around so much here, and you can hear her really pulling in these deep inhales between her lines and getting them all out full force. I don't think she misses a single note here, and a year or two before, she absolutely would have struggled with her breath by the end of this song with all that moving around. This song is really made for high energy live performances with explosions on the screen behind her, and that is exactly what we get here, and it works. And then the tour ends with one of the most straightforward performances of the show. A totally solid performance I should have said no, but not necessarily anything to write home about. Until suddenly, Taylor pulls out something totally and completely unexpected for the bridge. Like a complete change of melody, stops the song dead in its tracks to work the crowd like a wizard casting a spell over 50,000 people. And then as soon as the rain starts coming down, anyone who watched that '08 ACM performance that I've talked about multiple times already, one of my very favorite live performances of her career until now, you would know what's coming and be as hyped as I was for it, because it's about to get cool as hell. I'm so glad that if she was planning on carrying over some of her best prior live performances to the tour, which we've seen her do twice already, that she carried over this one and that she saved it for the finale of the show. Yeah, it might have been cool to see something totally original to end the tour on, but the rain gimmick is just so good. I just love it so much. It works so well. Taylor really knows how to kind of work the rain, you know? I'm really happy with this. It's the first song, performance, or video of her career to earn 9 stars from me. So, okay, a little tour wrap up. As I mentioned, with several specific songs, Taylor really improved as a live vocalist from the '08-'09 kind of award show performances to the tour clips we see here. I know they probably picked out some of the best cuts for this video, and I know she's got a backing track on a lot of the songs, but I was just really impressed with the vocals. Now, I've known that her voice improved a lot starting around 2015 or so, but I don't think I actually really appreciated how much it had also already improved in the years before that until I started watching these live performances over the first 3 years or so of her career. I guess that's what a year plus long tour and a legendary work ethic will do for you. I also found it interesting how much of a pop tour this felt like. My understanding of Taylor's career from listening to just the music on its own was definitely that she was firmly in the pop country camp for the first 2 albums, and only slowly started to drop the country and move into pure pop during Speak Now, and that she didn't really complete that journey until 1989 came along. But the truth is a little bit more complicated. You can already see the way this tour is performed that Taylor was envisioning herself as a pop artist. This did not feel like the tour of someone promoting their country album, or even their pop country album. For the most part, this felt like a pop show. I think there was something in Taylor from very early on that was primarily interested in writing and performing music that transcended genre in the way that the best pop music does. But my biggest takeaway from this tour video was just not expecting nearly so much behind the scenes footage. I thought I was just in for a straightforward front to back recording of a show on the tour but we got everything from Taylor doing promo for her debut album to rehearsals for the first stop on the tour, all the way through the final stadium show. I feel like this just gave me a much better sense of the perception that longtime Swifties have of what a Taylor Swift tour means, not just to them as fans, but also like what it means to Taylor. And the whole thing was just so personal. Like, obviously, Taylor makes extremely personal music, right? Like, she compares her songbook to a diary. But both with the amount of behind the scenes stuff she shows here and with the amount of direct interactions, like physical interactions she has with the fans at her shows here, it's really astonishing to me that she managed to convey and translate the personal quality of her music to her live performances and to this video itself. Even having just watched it all on a computer screen, I felt way more like I was there than I would have if it had just been like one full stop recording of a tour show. So it's just super cool, and it had me really excited to see what her future tour videos were like. So that's Taylor Swift's Fearless era from the perspective of kind of an outsider to the whole world of Taylor's music for the last 15 years. My biggest takeaway from the era is just the rapid improvement in her complete skill set, from her lyricism to her production choices to her ability to write a catchy chorus, from the acting in her music videos to her ability to command a stage to sharpening the skills of singing while dancing. She's just better at basically everything at the end of the Fearless era than she was at the start of it. And to some degree, yeah, maybe that's kind of to be expected, right? I was better at everything when I was 20 than I was at 18, too. But having reached the level of fame that she had at such a young age, it would have been all too easy to just settle into repeating the thing that people liked over and over again. And countless artists who get popular at a young age, even ones who don't get popular at a young age, just do exactly that. It's clear that Taylor was putting in the work to hone her craft at every level, not to mention that she was writing her third album entirely self-written while putting on this tour, which I think is just a reflection of not just a passion for what she was doing, but kind of a respect for the fame and the recognition that she was getting. Like, she wasn't just taking it for granted or content to just bask in it. Like, she was not convinced that people would love whatever she did. She wasn't expecting anything that she didn't work for, and she clearly wanted to continue improving and delivering something better than she had already, whether that meant a better live show or a better vocal performance or a better album. And frankly, I don't think you do that unless you're grounded and thankful enough to recognize that what you have isn't guaranteed. It's not something that you just inherently deserve, but is something that you continuously earn and prove. And I also don't think you do it unless you love it. And if nothing else, Taylor so obviously loves what she's doing, and so do I, and I think about like 100 million other people. So it's hard to overstate how excited I was to jump into the Speak Now era after this. If you just watched that whole thing, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found a performance you didn't know about, or maybe got a new perspective on a song that you didn't like as much before. Or if you like some of these songs or performances more than I do, please tell me about it, because I want to learn and I want to like them as much as you do. And of course, if you're interested in coming along with me on the rest of this journey, please let me know by subscribing to the channel. That would be really cool. So thank you. Bye.